So, what does a best case scenario look like for Republicans on the 2026 Senate map? The GOP enters the cycle with a 4 seat cushion after flipping 4 seats, along with the presidency, last November. That means even in a 50-50 Senate, they'd still hold the majority thanks to Vice President J.D. Vance's tie-breaking votes, at least until 2028. The map itself is widely seen as structurally favorable to Republicans. Democrats are defending 2 seats in states Trump carried in 2024, Michigan and Georgia, plus another 5 seats in states Kamala Harris won by less than 10 points: Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Virginia, and New Mexico. On the flip side, Republicans are defending just 1 seat in a Harris state, Maine, and only one other in a state Trump won by single digits, North Carolina. In a true best-case scenario, Republicans easily hold all of the solid red states, seats they'd be expected to win comfortably even in a blue wave year. Those 16 states alone put them at 47 seats, just 3 shy of a majority with 19 races still on the board. That right there shows how strong their position is, even in a neutral environment. Kalshi's prediction markets currently give Republicans a 70% chance of controlling the Senate after 2026, and that's factoring in what's expected to be a blue wave. Historically, the party out of power, in this case the Democrats, tends to gain ground in the first midterm after a new president takes office. But even with that in mind, the public still gives Republicans nearly a 3 in 4 chance to hold at least 50 seats. As always, I'll drop a link below so you can check the latest numbers, since they're constantly changing. Back to the map, let's look at the states I'd put in the likely Republican column. These are states where the GOP has a clear edge, but an upset is possible. If you're a regular here, you probably have them memorized: Iowa, Nebraska, and Texas. Ohio used to be in this group as well, but with former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown officially entering the race, it's now firmly in lean Republican territory, which we'll get to in just a bit. Now, as for Iowa, Nebraska, and Texas, each is a Republican-held seat that would only flip in a true best-case scenario for Democrats. Even then, it's unlikely. Trump carried all 3 by double digits last November, so the fundamentals heavily favor the GOP. The challenge in each case isn't the state itself, but the weakness of the incumbent, or in Texas, the weakness of the challenger. Texas is home to one of the most contentious Republican primaries in years. Incumbent Senator John Cornyn is facing a challenge from Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, setting up a high-stakes clash between the GOP establishment and its hardline conservative base. The two have long been at odds. Paxton has accused Cornyn of not being conservative enough, while Cornyn has pointed to Paxton's legal troubles, including his 2023 impeachment by the Republican-led Texas House. So far, neither Donald Trump nor Senator Ted Cruz has endorsed a candidate, and Trump's endorsement could prove decisive. Paxton had led Cornyn in every poll until an Emerson College survey earlier this week showed them in a dead heat. Cornyn at 30%, Paxton at 29%. In nearly every prior poll, Paxton was ahead by double digits, often topping 50%. That matters because Texas holds runoff primaries if no candidate passes the 50% mark. Prediction markets currently favor Paxton with about a 60% chance of winning the primary, and that's likely why the general election odds are tighter than you'd expect. According to Kalshi, Republicans have less than an 80% chance of holding the seat, a number that would likely be much higher if Cornyn were the nominee. Cornyn has a substantial war chest, $5 million cash on hand, plus near-universal endorsements from his Senate colleagues, and history shows incumbents generally outperform challengers. But if Paxton wins the nomination, the race tightens considerably, especially with Democrat Colin Allred officially in. Allred outperformed Kamala Harris in Texas by 5 points in 2024 and came within 9 points of unseating Ted Cruz. Limited general election polling backs that up. Cornyn has led Allred by 7 and 4 points in recent surveys, while Paxton's leads are narrower, just 5 and 2 points. All of that to say, in a best-case scenario for Republicans, Cornyn wins the primary and cruises to re-election by double digits. Then in Nebraska, Republican Pete Ricketts is running for his first full term in the Senate. He's not that popular, even within his own party, and the return of independent Cinderella candidate Dan Osborne could pose a serious threat to his re-election prospects. Osborne showed his strength in 2024, coming within 7 points of unseating incumbent Deb Fischer. He successfully positioned himself as neither a Democrat nor a Trump-aligned Republican, and proved to be a formidable fundraiser in the process. But come next November, in a best-case scenario for Republicans, they don't take the bait, and Nebraska's deep red fundamentals are enough for Ricketts to win comfortably, ideally by a double-digit margin. Before we jump to the next state, let me take this moment to remind you to subscribe to my channel below. It's completely free. According to my YouTube analytics, less than 20% of you are subscribed, so again, please hit the subscribe button below to help me keep making videos like these in the future. Thanks so much. Right next door, in Iowa, Republican Senator Joni Ernst sparked controversy during a May town hall, prompting several Democrats to jump into the race, seeing an opening in a state that's shifted sharply to the right over the past decade. Trump carried Iowa by 13 points in 2024, the largest margin for either party since Nixon's 49-state landslide in 1972. Still, the backlash to Ernst's comments has fueled speculation she may retire, with Republican Congresswoman Ashley Hinson reportedly ready to step in if she does. That possibility, along with the emerging candidacies of J.D. Scholten and State Senator Zach Walz, led both the Cook Political Report and Sabato's Crystal Ball to shift the race into the likely Republican column. The reality is, neither Scholten nor Walz is a shake-in-your-boots kind of candidate. Neither has statewide experience, and given Iowa's strong Republican lean, national Democrats are unlikely to pour a lot of resources into the race, with so many other contests more competitive. If Ernst runs, her controversy will probably be a political footnote by next November. If she retires, Hinson would be a strong middle-of-the-road replacement without the baggage. In a best-case scenario for Republicans, neither Scholten nor Walz gain serious traction, and Iowa stays solidly in GOP hands, no matter who the nominee is. Now, those 3 states alone have secured the Republican majority, as they are now projected to win 50 seats, which, again, would be enough with Vice President Vance casting the tie-breaking vote. And we still have 16 seats left on the board, including 4 states that President Trump won in the 2024 election, and 5 more where he came within 10 points. Let's go in order of most to least likely, starting in Ohio, where the big news this week is that former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown will challenge unelected Republican incumbent Jon Husted, who was appointed to replace J.D. Vance. It's hard to overstate how big this is for Democrats. Like Roy Cooper in North Carolina, Brown is the only candidate with a real shot at flipping the seat. He's won 3 Senate races in Ohio, and even last November, when Trump carried the state by 11 points, Brown still overperformed Kamala Harris by 8 points. Trump won't be on the ballot in 2026, and if we see a strong Democratic wave year, Brown could have a real shot. That said, Husted is no pushover. He's a relatively moderate Republican with deep statewide experience, having served as Secretary of State and Lieutenant Governor. Without Brown in the race, I would have had no problem placing Ohio in the safe Republican column, but his candidacy gives Democrats a high floor. And even in a best-case scenario for the GOP, it's hard to picture Husted winning by more than 10 points. For now, I've got Ohio down as likely Republican. The next most likely Republican hold actually isn't in a state Trump won. It's in Maine, where Republican Senator Susan Collins remains a political unicorn, and Democrats risk a generational fumble. Flashback to the 2020 Senate race, nearly every poll and analyst predicted Collins' defeat, yet she beat Democrat Sarah Gideon by 8 points, even as Joe Biden carried Maine by 9. To this day, she's the only Republican to win a Senate race in a state carried by a Democratic presidential nominee since 2004. Now in 2026, Democrats have yet to recruit a strong challenger. With Congressman Jared Golden out, their best hope is Governor Janet Mills. But she's 77 years old with only middling approval ratings. If they can't convince her to run, this could go down as a major missed opportunity. Maine's D plus 4 partisan lean suggests that in a neutral national environment, a generic Democrat should beat a generic Republican here by around 8 points. Collins has proven she can outperform expectations by that margin, but if 2026 leans Democratic nationally, any reasonably strong Democrat would have an advantage. In a best-case scenario for Republicans, Mills opts out, leaving Democrats with a weaker nominee, say someone like Jordan Wood, whose top resume line is serving as chief of staff to Congresswoman Katie Porter. For now, I'm putting Maine in the likely Republican column as well. Next is a bit of a coin flip between Michigan and North Carolina. On my regular prediction map, I'd give Democrats an ever so slight edge in both states, but Republicans should very realistically expect to carry both in a best-case scenario. In Michigan, Democrat Gary Peters is retiring, leaving his party vulnerable in one of the 3 core Rust Belt battlegrounds that Trump narrowly carried in 2024. While Democrat Alyssa Slotkin managed to hold the state's other Senate seat last cycle, she did so by just 20,000 votes over former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers, who is now officially back in the race for 2026. Rogers enters with Trump's endorsement, strong statewide name recognition, and a ready-made fundraising network from his last run. On the Democratic side, with both Pete Buttigieg and outgoing Governor Gretchen Whitmer declining to run, the party lacks a clear top-tier contender. Congresswoman Haley Stevens is currently the frontrunner among declared candidates, with State Senator Mallory McMorrow close behind. Neither, however, should be considered a standout general election candidate. Their main advantage over Rogers would come from a likely blue wave environment and Michigan's tendency to lean Democratic in recent down-ballot races. But in a best-case scenario for Republicans, where that wave never materializes and the Democratic nominee stumbles, Rogers could realistically flip the seat by a couple of points. In North Carolina, if not for Republican incumbent Tom Tillis's retirement and former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper jumping into the race, this lean Republican rating probably would have been accurate, even in a favorable Democratic environment. For as close as Democrats have come, they've now lost 8 consecutive federal races in North Carolina for president and U.S. Senate, all by single-digit margins. But this year may be their best shot yet, thanks to the strength Cooper brings to the tickets. He left the governor's office earlier this year with high approval ratings, near universal name recognition across the state, and a powerful fundraising network already in place. Like Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Cooper gives Democrats a very high floor, making it hard to imagine Republicans winning by more than 3 or 4 points. We also don't yet know how RNC Chair Michael Whatley will perform as a candidate, which limits the GOP's ceiling. Still, in a best-case environment for Republicans, Whatley should win the seat, but it's far from a sure thing. Right now, the prediction markets appear to be very bullish on Cooper's candidacy, with Kalshi giving Democrats a 67% chance of flipping this seat. Also, in the lean Republican group is Georgia, though of the 3, I see this as the least likely Republican pickup. The GOP failed to land its own Roy Cooper-type recruit in Governor Brian Kemp, who declined to run. That leaves them with an uninspiring field led by Congressman Buddy Carter and Mike Collins. Neither is particularly well positioned to compete at the scale this race demands, especially against Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff. Since his historic 2020 runoff win over David Perdue, Ossoff has built a strong political brand and a formidable fundraising machine. The only thing keeping Republicans competitive here is Georgia's partisan lean. While the state has trended Democratic at the presidential level, it's remained solidly Republican in statewide races. In 2022, the GOP held every statewide office by at least 5 points. So yes, there's a scenario where Carter or Collins rides the fundamentals to victory. But even in a best-case situation for Republicans, Georgia is the least likely of the 3 in this category. And again, the prediction markets agree as bettors on Kalshi favor the Democratic Party with a 73% chance of winning. Now, all of the remaining states are ones I'd normally expect to stay Democratic, even in a neutral environment. But there are really only 2, maybe 3, where I could plausibly see Republicans pulling off the narrowest of wins. The first is New Hampshire, where Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen is retiring. Congressman Chris Pappas is the first to enter the race to succeed her, and at this point, he's likely to remain the most prominent Democrat in the field. Republicans, though, were dealt a major blow when former Governor Chris Sununu declined to run. He would have been their strongest possible candidate and probably would have been favored over Pappas, even in a Democratic-leaning environment. Instead, it looks like former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown is on track to win the GOP nomination. Brown is a strong candidate in his own right, still the only Republican to win a Senate race in deep blue Massachusetts in over 50 years. In a red wave year, like the one we're hypothetically envisioning here, Brown could even be favored. New Hampshire leans blue on fundamentals, but Republicans have come close before. Two of the last three presidential races here were decided by less than a point, and they flipped the governorship in 2024. Beyond New Hampshire, the only other remotely plausible Republican flips are Virginia and Minnesota, with Minnesota the more likely of the two. Democratic Senator Tina Smith is retiring, leaving the seat open in a state with about a D+3 partisan lean. Democrats have a strong bench, though, led by Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and Congresswoman Angie Craig. Both are much stronger candidates on paper than the GOP frontrunner Royce White, a former NBA player who just lost to Amy Klobuchar by 16 points last cycle. Without a stronger candidate, it's hard to imagine Republicans flipping Minnesota, so I've got it in the tilt Democrat column. And in Virginia, Republicans' only real shot is if Governor Glenn Youngkin jumps into the race against Democratic Senator Mark Warner. But Warner is running for re-election as a popular veteran presence in the state, and even Youngkin would need a strong red wave to win. Like Minnesota, I'll place Virginia in tilt Democrat. Every other unrated state should stay safely Democratic. In a major red wave, maybe New Mexico, Illinois, or New Jersey get closer than expected, but Republicans are essentially capped at 56 seats, a net gain of 3, keeping them in a strong position heading into 2028. That would be nothing short of a disaster for Democrats, who need to cut the Republican majority down to 51 or even 50 seats in order to have a favorable path to flipping the chamber in 2028. As always, share your thoughts on the map in the comments below, and let me know which races or topics you'd like me to cover next. That's it for today's video. Huge thanks to my channel members, all listed in the description. Don't forget to hit subscribe and drop a like if you enjoyed the content. Check out more of my videos here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.